Morning everybody. This lesson is entitled From the basic unit of evolution to the basic unit of classification to the basic unit of conservation. Which is the appropriate unit in conservation biology? Biodiversity is organized in hierarchical levels. The individual functioning is regulated by the interaction of the many different genes that compose the genome of each individual, and that regulate the ways individuals interact with the biotic and abiotic environments. More interbreeding individuals living in the same area form a population, and more populations potentially interbreeding form a species. And more species living in the same area and interacting each other form a community. Finally, the interaction between the community and the abiotic environment form the ecosystem. Global change are threatening biodiversity at all these levels of organization, and now stakeholders agree with scientists on the importance to protect all the levels of biodiversity. However, conservation actions are ineffective if addressed on the wrong conservation unit. Therefore, the identification of an appropriate unit for protection and management is essential for the conservation of biological diversity. But which is this unit? Of the panda, there are a few thousand of individuals restricted in a small geographic region with no substantial population structure. In this case, addressing conservation initiatives on the whole species range is feasible and will result in beneficial effect both below and above the species level. But let me show a bit different case. Gorillas are ape species living in Central Africa. There are two gorilla species, the western gorillas living in the western tropical forests of Congo, Guinea and Gabon, which count more than 300,000 individuals, and the eastern gorilla living in the core of Central Africa accounting no more than 5,000 individuals. Both species are classified as critically endangered by the IUCN. However, not all the subspecies are critically endangered. In fact, the mountain gorilla, the subspecies Gorilla beringei, is classified only as endangered, despite it counts 600 individuals. Way more problematic is the case of the leopard. This species is widely distributed from the sub-Saharan Africa to the Middle East and to the Southern Asia, despite its population are highly fragmented. The species is considered vulnerable by the IUCN, but not all the subspecies have the same level of threat. The African leopard has quite a healthy population and is not considered threatened at the moment. In contrast, the Indian leopard is considered near threatened. The Sri Lankan population are considered vulnerable. The Javan and the Anatolian leopard are endangered, while the Arabian and the Indochinese leopard are critically endangered. And finally, the Amur leopard is considered locally extinct. Which is the appropriate unit of analysis in conservation biology? The population, the species, the subspecies? But what is a subspecies? Is a group of population, but what is a population? Keep calm, don't worry. But what is a species? According to the biological species concept, A species can be defined as a group of organisms that can successfully interbreed and produce fertile offspring. A population, instead, is a group of conspecific individuals that live in a particular geographic area and that is demographically and genetically disjoint from other groups of individuals of the same species. Population is the basic unit of evolution. And finally, a subspecies is a group of populations that live in a particular geographic area and that vary in morphological or genetical characteristics from another group of population but can successfully interbreed with them. Change among population, subspecies and species is the amount of gene flow and the genetic differentiation among individuals. So there is gene flow and relatively low genetic differentiation among individuals belonging to different populations of the same subspecies. Conversely, there is reduced gene flow and usually substantial genetic differentiation among individuals belonging to different subspecies. And finally, there is no gene flow and there is deep genetic differentiation among individuals belonging to two different closely related species. So, population is the smaller demographic unit. This means that each change in environmental conditions will affect the natality and the mortality within the single population. Population is the unit where we can see the trace of decline as the negative effect of the anthropogenic pressures. Still, within population, the reduction of population size will cause genetic erosion as the consequence of genetic drift and inbreeding depression. But population is also the level where we can see the positive effect of the conservation policies, such as an increase in population size. So, population is not the basic unit of classification, but is the basic unit of evolution, and therefore is the basic unit on which conservation management initiatives can lead to effective results at both short and long term. Look at the case of the leopard. Applying conservation initiatives to the whole species range is not feasible. A conservation initiative useful for the African leopard, which show big and healthy population, is perhaps ineffective on the Indochinese leopard population, which shows small and strongly declining population. Still, a conservation initiative useful for the Indochinese leopard is not useful for the African leopard. So, the current classification of biological diversity in species and subspecies may not reflect biologically meaning units. Therefore, identifying the spatial structure of populations within species is fundamental to plan conservation initiatives that consider the discrete units that can quickly respond to conservation management. And finally, conservation initiatives addressed to evolutionary units are cost-effective and have more chance to make substantial contribution to contrast biodiversity decline.